lords and ladies of the realm. My name is Emily Sophia, and I am going to be walking you guys through the latest episode of Game of Thrones, Season 4, Episode 7, Mockingbird. So spoiler alert, before we dive into the mad thick of things, and also just a quick little teensy announcement for you guys. For those of you either familiar with or new to my channel, do check out my new M Mighty Sophia montage video, link in the description, as well as here, just kind of a compilation of, basically what all of my vlogs are all about. And it was made for me by an incredible fan, and I want as many people to see it as possible because he did such awesome, fantastic work, and I just want everybody to see and share that with me. So anyways, Game of Thrones, spoiler, 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 and without further ado, let's get into it because I have a serious case of the giggles. And what I call this particular brand of giggles that I get, and it often happens after a very euphoric episode of Game of Thrones, I call it the gallows giggles, because I get into this place where someone dies on Game of Thrones who, I'm pretty happy about it. I'm on cloud 9 for whatever reason. Call me the sadist that I am, and I will own that business because it's so true. I'm really quite a twisted biscuit, but I just... My brother has been reading the Game of Thrones series, and he doesn't watch the show with me consistently. Like, we've marathoned it together before, but he's been reading the books. So right after I got done watching the episode, I ran downstairs to go tell him who died. And so I got my case of gallows giggles going on, and I see that my parents were both in the main room as I'm whipping around the corner, and I am just like, my cheeks are aglow with pleasure, and they're like, what's got you in such a chipper mood? And I'm like, somebody died on Game of Thrones. And they just look like, oh, this girl is a clinical case. And I'm not gonna say that's not true. But, so raise your hand if you kind of totally, definitely wanted that to happen, / saw it coming. Raise 2 hands if you wanted it and saw it coming. And I got mine up with spirit fingers, jazz hands. Just so, I don't know why I was so excited for her to not so much kick the bucket as get kicked out of it. Out of the dear moon door, but I saw it coming. I knew that Baelish had some kind of thing for Sansa, and he's got this whole master plan that he is slowly but surely unraveling, or unveiling as it were, because there is not a seam to be plucked from this scheme of his, at least not yet. That much I can gather. But I just had this feeling in my gut that there was no way that what he had with Liza was in any sense authentic. Strictly business, He had that ongoing thing for Catelyn Stark for way too freaking long to be head over heels for this woman. And we know the things that Baelish is capable of, and the political games that he plays, and also love games, as Lady Gaga would say. But all this time, that one song, Jesse's Girl? See, I was kind of thinking about that song in the context of Petyr Baelish when it came to Catelyn. So he was kind of in this place of the following, it's like, I wish that I had Ned Stark's girl. I wish that I had Ned Stark's girl. Where can I find a woman like that? And then he got Sansa Stark, and the rest is history, okay? That was just, I don't know. Are we supposed to want what's going on with Petyr and Sansa? I don't know. Morally, I am all kinds of everywhere on the spectrum, but I kind of wanted it in a way, and you just kind of want anyone for Sansa except the people who have absolutely been devastating her existence. And I guess indirectly Petyr has contributed to things that have damaged her family, but at the same time, he ushered her away from the presence of a husband with whom she did not wish to be, as well as out of the presence of the husband who she was almost with, as well as Marjorie. I miss Marjorie and Lady Olenna, by the way. We didn't get to see them at all this week, so that saddens me. Also didn't get to see what's going on with Theon, but anyways. So Baelish spirited her away from all of that madness, and I am thankful for that unto him. But I don't know, he just has such a way about him, and you know, he's the man in control. So be it that the age gap will be what it is, but at the same time, I also want Dany and Jorah together in my Twisted Little Matchmaker universe, so I don't know what this says about me. I give up. Seriously, I had a thing for, like, Dexter and Deborah from the Showtime series Dexter, so I just, don't question, just go with it. I don't know why I'm so giddy. I mean, Liza was by no means the worst person in this universe. I dare say that on the hierarchical scale, she falls back a few notches. We got Joffrey and Ramsay and, you know, people of that caliber up in the mix. And I mean, she was just kind of scuzzy, you know? That was the way that she came across to me. Scuzzy and desperate and clingy and just a little bit on the destructive side. And I mean, being that the whole, you know, we think back to the whole trial by combat thing for Tyrion at the Eyrie back in the day. We were all pissed off about the situation that was unfolding. I mean, she kind of played a part in that, but I don't know. I'm kind of anxious to see what exactly the fallout from the situation is going to be and what's going to happen with Robin, because he's a little bit of a Looney Tunes character as well. I'm not exactly sure, but the thing with Sansa and Petyr is just, it's just powerful. There's such a mystique to Mr. Baelish that you can't help but just kind of be a tingle when he's in on something with somebody. I continue to feel bad for Sansa, and you know, as she's building this replica of Winterfell, the place where she can never return. And then after Robin has a heyday with her statue and she freaks out and everything is in shambles, he tells her, you know, that before you can build a new kingdom, the old must be demolished. So what does this mean exactly for Sansa? Is this about Petyr? Is this about, you know, getting back at the Lannisters? I mean, everyone's kind of trying to get back at the Lannisters in some way, shape, or form, but I don't know, I'm really excited. And this plot line to me, okay, so here's the spectrum. And so we've got the stuff that's going on at King's Landing and, you know, at the Eyrie right now and all of that stuff, the high intrigue, you know, we're down on this end. And then there's kind of the end where Bran and the Night's Watch are, for me. As far as what is really gaining my interest, definitely on this side. Definitely way over on the left. Because, I mean, I know that things are building to a big climactic battle or something of the sort with the Night's Watch and the Wildlings, and I know that's coming, but the little... And I mean, we did have the whole shindig at Craster's Keep as well, which was in itself very exciting, but this week, the scene that we had at the Night's Watch and with Jon and sealing up the tunnel and basically arguing and kind of belittling him, it wasn't that interesting in comparison. But I'm not one to throw out any one plot line when it comes to this show. I mean, what's the good in that? You know, enjoy what you get. See what happens. I try to be a glass half full kind of a person when it comes to all of these different subplots because I want to enjoy the show as much as possible. So that's just kind of my personal opinion, but I'm really glad that we had that scintillating development. I was really digging that. And I am slightly psychotic, and these episodes prove that in me. I mean, I've loved the 4th season because there have been so many victorious moments. I mean, even if they come with some kind of negative fallout, I mean, that's just basically anything in this world, right? You know? So, you gotta seize the day, as it were. Anyway, so let me go ahead and walk you guys through everything else that transpired in the episode, and feel free to leave your comments, fill in any blanks, as well as predictions for what's to come. And try to steer clear of book spoilers or preface them if you happen to drop them in the comment section, because I do look down there and try to reply as much as I can. So, we begin with a little spat between Jaime and Tyrion. Jaime is convinced that Tyrion has thrown his life away. And the overall arc for Tyrion in this episode was him trying to find somebody to represent him in battle for the trial by combat that he so powerfully requested last week. So of course he begins with Jaime, who declares himself really Tyrion's only friend at this point, and unfortunately that's kind of true. He's not a well-friended man at this point in time. And so the question is, you know, who is Cersei to name as champion? Could Bronn step to the plate? We know that he's represented Tyrion before, so you have that sense in the back of your mind that it's not going to be Bronn representing Tyrion, simply because we've already seen that. I mean, for him to go up against the Mountain would certainly be an exciting exchange to watch unfold, but at the same time, you feel like there's something else coming. There's some other truth under the carpet, and nobody's flicked it up yet, you know? So I kind of had a feeling that it wasn't going to be Bronn and it wasn't going to be Jaime, because he's still been struggling so much in training on his non-dominant hand, and while it would be exciting to see him try and rise up as the comeback kid, it's just not happening at this point. So the big question is who? And we get back to that later after a brief little moment with Arya and the Hound, and they share a little bit of a murder lesson together. They encounter a dying farmer, and the Hound essentially gives him a mercy, killing him. Sorry, words combining, just becoming fluid together. He gives him a drink of water. You know, they talk about the changing world and fairness and nothingness, and you know, all these kinds of philosophical discussions, and then the Hound pretty much just sticks the blade right in, and that is to be a lesson for Arya as to how to kill a man, because he landed that puppy right in the heart. And Arya gets to turn around and do the same thing to the guys who are after the Hound for the bounty, with his killing all the Lannister soldiers, etc., etc. You know, they're the problem posse. They're making their way to the Eyrie one painful step at a time, and the Hound starts to reconsider this whole process, you know, why exactly he's even doing this, what reward is worth all of the insanity that he's endured so far. But we get back to that. There is another scene that they share together later on. And so, of course, we have a little brief moment with Jon at the wall, and he's trying to enlighten them as to the course of action that he and his fellow men should take in preparing for the wildling attack. And they kind of berate and belittle him, and he kind of sits around and huffs and puffs and, you know, doesn't get to blow the house down yet, but he's certainly capable of such an action, I would say. So moving on from there, we go back to Tyrion. So Bronn is back in the business, except kind of totally not. You know, they have a very honest discussion with one another as to how is this going to ultimately profit Bronn. He and Tyrion have shared a friendship, but at the same time, Bronn has made it clear in times past that, well, it really comes down to what he's getting from it. And it's not about a sense of honor or defending his friend. I mean, Tyrion has never really gotten to prove that he would do the same for Bronn either. So when it comes to going up against someone like the Mountain, you really need a solid payment plan in that department. And as Tyrion says, he's a little bit short on castles right now. He can offer gold and gratitude, neither of which Bronn is really in need of at this point. And he even tries to offer potentially Winterfell. I mean, assuming that he and his wife are technically still together, but there are some other shenanigans afoot there. But ultimately, They have an emotional parting of ways, at least very emotional for Tyrion, and Bronn knows what exactly his denial to refusal to represent Tyrion means. He knows it deep down, and he has respect for the guy, but you know, respect isn't quite enough to just really provide that catalyst, that momentum in facing pretty much the most ridiculous fighter in the world of Westeros. And also I have to say that I had a good laugh when as Cersei was approaching the mountain and she's walking up to him as he's, you know, taking out the trash, and her skirt like trails over all these organs. That was just such an awesome and comical contrast to me. You know, she's just kind of like but you know, barely trying to lift up her skirt just to kind of make her way through. But at this point in time, you know, she's feeling pretty confident about her prospects. Her ambitions of taking out the imp are looking pretty bright at this point in time. So then, of course, we head back to Meereen, where Dany continues to reign as queen. Of course, she's not exactly queen of her quarters that evening as Dario. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, Dario shows up yet again with another exotic bouquet and a request to basically get something to do. For him, it's not enough for him and his other the second sons to just be patrolling the city and trying to maintain order. His two particular areas of importance on his resume are war and women. So he essentially asks, you know, let me do what I do. And it was a very clever and sexy little scene there between him and Dany, as we see her eyebrows are at work and the cogs are turning in her mind. You know, who does she need taken out at this point? What exactly would benefit her in her new world order? What could she possibly request of this handsome man in her boudoir, asking for something to do? And she gives him something to do. And bada bing, bada boom, the hanky-panky ensues off camera, but of course we see that Dany is very much in control of the situation as she orders him to take off his clothes. And he kind of smiles like, okay, finally, not so much gonna be bored tonight. So there you go. That pretty much breaks down that situation, and we return to that shortly after a brief little tryst at a Dragonstone, where Stannis' wife and the Red Priestess are speaking with one another about their next course of action, what the Lord of the Light is showing them, what he requires, and apparently he requires Stannis and Stannis' wife, their daughter. So it's kind of a little transitional scene setting up for the next major development with what's going on as far as Stannis' journey to the Iron Throne, and you know, a little bit of booblies in the action as well. You know, you can't go too long without that business. So yeah, again, kind of transitional, setting up for what is to come in that department. And so there's a bit of tension between the wifey and the Red Priestess as she reveals that she did not have to use a potion to arouse lust in Stannis. But ultimately they kind of have sort of bonding moments together as the Red Priestess reveals that the wife is strong enough to look into the Lord's light. Okay, so there's that situation. And then we head back to Meereen, where Jorah catches Dario on his way out, and just rest his soul. I felt so bad. Oh, poor Jorah. He has to keep up the business front. He has to maintain his position and not overstep his bounds. But at the same time, just, I mean, she is a wanted woman, and doesn't he ever know it? But at the same time, his top priority is giving her guidance and fulfilling what she wants. And we continue to see an increasingly feisty and powerful Dany as she is figuring out how to situate herself as ruler and how she's going to go about building and substantiating this it's a very idealistic world that she envisions, but there is a pragmatic side to it too, being that she's got some men who are working for her. So at first she tells Jorah that she's going to be sending Dario and the second sons back to end slavery in Yunkai and beyond. And she instead opts ultimately to send Jorah as an ambassador per his pleas and advice to her. And so they have very, very interesting energy and kind of a fusing of both of their goals. And so I thought that was kind of a cool scene, and I'm looking forward to seeing how exactly Dany's regime is going to continue and what that's going to look like. And then after that, we go back to the Hound and Arya again, and they get to have kind of a little intimate bonding moment as well, as the Hound, after severely berating Arya for trying to sear the wound shut and help him to heal from that attack back at the farm, he ends up telling her the story of, you want to know how I got these scars? The Hound version. And so he's kind of reevaluating his life almost in Arya's presence, and ultimately she opts to not bring the flame any closer to him than what he's already dealt with in his traumatic past, and goes forward to help him as best she can. And I'm really interested to see what the trajectory of their journey together is going to be as well. There's a little bit of like and a little bit of loathe in that relationship that they share. And I feel that ultimately at some point they're going to really be put to a test, but I don't know what exactly that's going to look like yet. Again, we'll just have to see how that transpires. And then next we get a delightful little scene with Brienne and Podrick, whom I had forgotten about them, and I feel absolutely horrid about that because Brienne is my main babe, and I am really all about her. I found her fantastic. And so they had a really great scene when they were at the inn having a little bit of kidney pie. And of course they are being served by the one and only Flea Bottom, who emphatically tells them that one must never give up on the gravy. And I feel like I'm just going to take that quote and apply it to every situation, to every character's goal in the rest of the show. Just remember, Tyrion, never give up on the gravy. Just remember that. I feel like that's kind of a metaphor for everything in some way. I don't know. That was just my stupid idea, and I'm gonna move on from that. At any rate, so Brienne goes so far as to explain that she and Podrick are looking for Lady Sansa. And Flea Bottom is a little bit ambiguous on that topic, on anything that does not pertain directly to the culinary arts. He kind of takes a pass. But then as Brienne and Podrick are preparing to take off, and Podrick is like, I don't think that we should be going outright saying what's going on. We're doing this for money, and people kill for money, and the etc., etc. But then at that point, Flea Bottom comes out and he confides in them that he knows Sansa's sister. And through that connection, Brienne and Podrick make other connections about just exactly where the Stark girls are and what's going on in that department. And there was just a really funny, sassy moment after they get all of this really critical intel from Flea Bottom. He takes off and they're heading out, and Brienne just makes his face at Podrick like, you were saying? It was just brilliant, top notch. I adore you, Gwendolyn. You do such a lovely job. So now the question is, which of the Stark girls are they going to find first, and how is that going to unfold? Are we going to have a confrontation between the Hound and Brienne? I dare say that would be a fascinating thing to observe. So then we go back to Tyrion, and he is on his last leg here. I mean, really, third time's the charm, right? He talks to Jaime, he talks to Bronn, and then Oberyn comes to him in his place of darkness, in despair. And And the way that Oberyn goes about this whole, how he ultimately sets himself up as Tyrion's champion is really fascinating, just very emotional for Tyrion as well, as he's listening to Oberyn's story about how he met this monster with the red eye and the tail between his legs and the horns, and how he ultimately found just an innocent little baby, stained only by his stature, his abnormal size, and his having killed his mother through being born. And so Tyrion is going through this whole story and everything that Oberyn is sharing about him, and his conclusions that he derived from that encounter with Tyrion as but a wee babe. And you know, ultimately Tyrion he doesn't know which way this is gonna go, especially when Oberyn is like, I'm gonna go ahead and get revenge on the Lannisters for my sister and her children. And he just kind of closes his eyes and he's like, yep, Cersei always gets what she wants. And then in that last moment, as Oberyn takes up the torch, he stands and he's like, I will be your champion. So that is not what Cersei wants this time, but what Oberyn wants. And what he wants in this situation is to subvert the Lannisters the way that he desires to. And that was, you know, I had a little inkling of a feeling in the back of my mind that Oberyn would somehow be the one to represent Tyrion. And I didn't have that spoiled for me, luckily. So I was just kind of noticing that of all the people that Tyrion has encountered and of all the people that he has connections with, despite Oberyn's history with the Lannisters, he has a very interesting tie with Tyrion, and certainly does not see him as the killer in this situation. So I think that was set up really well, and the dramatic build in that scene, that switch up at the last minute where he's like, yeah, actually, I'm gonna be your main man. That was just so great. So great. So we get another win for Tyrion this week, and all of this ultimately leads us back to, well, the events of the Eyrie, which I already shared with you my thoughts and reactions to that, and it was just so great. Still feeling good over here. Call me a mad woman, and I will not tell you differently, because I am, and that's okay. And I'm Team Mockingbird over here, okay? So thank you guys so much for watching this review. Feel free to follow me on Twitter and fun places. I got links in the description. We've got, what, 3 episodes left? 8, 9, and 10. This season is just blown by. It's had such a different feel from the last season. It's just really surreal to me. I'm expecting some horrible atrocity to occur at any time. And I don't know. I don't know what to think at this point, but I really enjoyed tonight. I hope that you guys did too, and let me know if you did or didn't in the comments, and we will hash it out and duke it out down there. So, you guys, take care, and I will be back before you know it.